Thanks, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to share a thing with you and some stories, and hopefully that gets you excited to come to the museum, not just to see the exhibits or participate in the programs, but also to realize that your museum has 1.5 million objects in it, and those are available to you both to satisfy your curiosity, but also as tools for research, for innovation, for entrepreneurship. And we look forward to the time when we can also collect your triumphs and add them to the museum. So I'm going to start here with, did I press the right button? Oh, got it. With a provocative saying. In my field, in the history of technology, the founder of the Society for the History of Technology, Mel Kranzberg, said there were 6 laws about technology. And Kranzberg's first law is technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And so we're in a program tonight around tech for good. And I wanted to say something a little provocative and then circle round to that coming back. So this museum has lots of objects. We're a collecting museum, as I just indicated. And on one of those tables in front of our model wall has been for the past year a display that tells the story about the Boston arm, the prototypes that are on display. And that's changing out literally next week. So I have one of those objects with me from that table. But if you go to our collections database online and you search and you type in the word good, this is what comes up as the #1 hit. Here it's a 1826 engraving called The Creation. It's from the Alan Forbes collection at the museum. And I couldn't think of, I thought, well, maybe that would be fun, except that it's like this big, so I can't bring that with me tonight. You'll have to come to the museum to see that. What I brought with you instead is this object. And I'm going to pull it out of its case here and share this with you. And some of you up close can get a view at this. Here, I'm going to just hold it here. Yeah, museum people are really fanatical about gloves and stuff like that. But also this leaks. Any clues? This came in, we got a bunch of boxes from the MECI department. Most of them were, we thought, connected with that Boston Arm project. And in fact, for a couple of years, I thought this might be some, weird prototype for the Boston Arm. But it really was mysterious until a couple of years ago when I thought, well, I want to build a new display for this new museum. And so when you find an object that you don't know anything about, there are some basic questions you ask. What is it? Who made it? When was it made? When was it used? Why was it made? And some relevance. So I'm going to jump right to the punchline here and say this turns out to be part of a simulator system called the MIT knee. It was made by Woodie Flowers, who's a very famous professor here at MIT. He worked on it between 1968 and 1972 when he earned his PhD. Here it was, why was it created? For his PhD thesis. And the question, though, is about relevance. And that's where I want to tell a couple of stories. So what clued me in to what this was actually this photo. And it's from a brochure about the mechanical engineering department at MIT. It's called the Newman Laboratory. It specialized in doing a lot of research on rehabilitative technologies. And I see Flowers here. And in the hand, next to him is his advisor at MIT, Robert Mann, on the right. And in Robert Mann's hands is that very device. And I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. What's going on here? And I learned, it said something about the MIT knee. And I'm like, knee? I thought this was an arm. And of course, those of you who are scientists and engineers in the audience know that that moment is the really important moment when you realize that what you thought you knew you need to do more investigation and change. So Robert Mann came to MIT after World War II. He earned all 3 of his degrees here on the GI Bill, and then was hired in 1953 to be a professor. And he was in mechanical engineering. He was obsessed with design. He lived and breathed the idea of engineering design. And that made him an outlier in the department at that time, because that was the moment when everybody was obsessed with physics and engineering science. And so Mann was considered kind of an old-fashioned guy. But, and he was working on projects here to make specialized electronics that fit in the Sparrow missile. And how does this all fit in? You think, wow, she's really moving far away from this story here. And, but in 1959, while he was working on this Sparrow missile project, a man by the name of John Dupress, who was a veteran who lost his sight in the Second World War, came to MIT and said, can somebody help make a Braille machine that could communicate with a computer? And Mann was so interested in the design questions, they sort of gave it to him. They gave him this project. And that got him involved, and that led to the MIT Braille machine. But in 1961, this guy, Mr. Cybernetics, Norbert Wiener, tripped on the stairs here at MIT, and he broke his hip. And he's at MGH, and he's recovering from surgery. And he meets Melvin Glimcher, who's working on this Boston Arm project. And you see this, he says, talk to Robert Mann, because he knows how to put lots of electronics inside inside of cylinders. So with Robert Mann going off onto this project, he shifted his whole career, and he shifted the career of his graduate student, Woodie Flowers, who had just finished an exciting master's thesis on sound transmission in paper pulp slurries. And Woodie gets sucked up, and he gets involved in a project extending. The Boston Arm was for people who had above the elbow amputations. He gets involved in building a simulator to better understand the behavior or needs of how to improve prosthetics for people with above the knee amputations. So that work continues. He finally graduates in 72, and he thinks, oh, thank God. And he writes a really interesting line in his thesis, in his summary. He said, this was a lot harder, and our schedule was really optimistic. Anyone here had a really optimistic schedule in their life? He gets hired, though, to teach, and he is first co-teaching with Professor Herb Richardson this new design course, which then Woodie takes over right away. It's a course called 2.70 or 270. Many people in this room today may know it as 2007. And that pivots his whole life into reinventing engineering pedagogy. He has some students who continue to work on the MIT knee, but really his life's work is rethinking how do we teach design. And he creates a simulation, a course that simulates the design process. That has transformed design education around the world in colleges and universities. And it has led to things like the first competition, which he inspired, with this guy, Dean Kamen, who's you see sitting on the iBot a stair-climbing wheelchair. But to bring this back, that was inspired by this man, Ernesto Blanco, who built a working model of a stair-climbing wheelchair in 1961 and gave all of his design results and drawings to Dean Kamen. Now, I want to conclude here with one little observation here looking forward. A lot of work at MIT in prosthetics is being done now in the Media Lab by this man, Hugh Hare. And Hare made another provocative statement. He said, there's no such thing as disability, only disabled technologies. And what I want to conclude with is this notion is that I had some knee surgery this summer, and that changed my whole outlook on mobility and getting around. And in fact, I really began to appreciate Hare's statement here, but also I began to appreciate the work of disability scholars who understand that changing design ideas about people whose bodies do not fit the norms that we have used to shape our modern world. And when we do that, we take a new look at the objects in our collections, and I think then we get better at understanding this idea of good tech. Thank you.